expect from this guy.
This is my first time on a Smudcast, so...
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, you've done this.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 799. How revisionist history is a good thing. Oh, dear. Okay, let's get the basics out. This is from the Welsh Viking. Came out July the 2nd of this year. Has about 12,000 views. He's got almost 90,000 subs. I see a very high upvote ratio and only 123 downvotes. So 1.8 thousand upvotes, 123 downvotes. This is a 21.5 minute long video. How do we take this? I'm going to give an example of something. Let's say I have a writer in Canada called Alice Munro, very famous. She died in May of this year. She, Nobel laureate, all these awards, has a chair in the Western University for Faculty of Creativity. I don't know, people go there to learn how to write, whatever. We found out this week that her second husband molested her daughter. Her daughter told her, and she stayed married and disagreed that she was molested. So, yeah, we have a lot of things popping up later in history that we learn about that changes our outlook on people, and that's just how it goes. Now, new information would, of course, change how you think of other people. That's natural. I'm curious if this gentleman is going to talk about wars and, you know, who did what and why and how and all the details therein. That could shed some light on certain scenarios, but I don't think we would suddenly go, oh yeah, this is totally the fault of the Allies during World War II. This is big issue with telling Germany what to do and stopping them.
Yeah, we're by law not allowed to question anything, and thereby the term revisionism of history has gotten a bad reputation because it's only used in the context of, oh no, you're questioning the narrative about the Holocaust stuff, when revisionism of history happens every time you find something new, or where you re-examine the evidence and come to new conclusions that might even make things more hard than they were, not just less.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because we do hear from, well, not hear, but we watch videos over the years that people that we vehemently disagree with have weird takes on people, writers, authors, whatever, that they think they're Nazis, they think they're fascists, they call them a series of names because they wrote letters, or they had a secret lover, or they had a dog that they didn't like. Therefore, they're horrible people, which is...
Oh yeah, and mind that the very people who call everybody Nazis all the time are the very ones who say revisionist history bad, but at the same time are trying to rewrite history, so doing revisionist history, all the time by trying to rewrite it into pro their ideology variants.
For modern times to say that, we have always been right. It's always been the bad guys in the past that are against us.
For modern sensitivities, we have to rewrite history to not get emotionally offended by the past.
Especially when they invent new words and they say things like, well, you know, Marvel has always been woke, or the right wing has always been fascist, or whatever the dumb statement might be that they want.
I was told today that the CCP is right wing.
Really?
Yeah. There were people like that, yes.
Well,
all socialism that makes socialism look bad is right wing. So all socialism is right wing.
You know, people always say this left and right wing thing. All it matters is who's in power saying what's left. They can say whatever the hell they want, and people go, I guess that's true. I guess that's what we are now. And before we were centrists in Canada, because liberals are typically traditionally centrist, but now anything to the right of liberals, which are so far left, is I don't know what they call us anymore, because we disagree with some of their economic policies. But it's, when you read our finance minister's book she wrote in 2012, and she wants a marginal tax rate of 70% as you go up.
70.
Yeah, because she said, well, they had 7% in the 70s, so therefore it's a great thing. And you're like, No, it wasn't a great thing. When
We're
interest
already
rate,
at 53.
oh my God, yeah, we're at 49 for some margins. We're down to like 20 to 23 or something, I think. But yeah, it's just this ridiculous nonsense that, and she's getting booted out eventually the next few months. But it's just this stupid crap that you have to put up with whenever you hear people talk about spending money during an inflationary period, and you're like, oh, are you sure this person knows what they're talking about? Anyway, let us begin. We got 20 minutes and a half to go.
Hello, Jimmy here, and today we're talking about a concept. We're talking about a historical concept, the concept of revisionism. And we're going to look at what it is, we're going to look at what it isn't, and why it's good or bad, maybe. So, strap in, grab a cup of tea. This is a bit of a wordy one.
Dragon.
What is happening?
There's a dragon and a Viking.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
So I'm going
snowing.
to start this video by being good little academics and good little students of the past, and we're going to define our terms. And
Nice.
our term of the day is revisionism. And revisionism, as the name sort of implies, is where we reinterpret the past, or we reinterpret how we see the past.
no, that would be reinterpretation.
Yeah, revisionism would be basically just writing something over the already known stuff and saying, no, this didn't happen, it happened this way.
Right.
If we go
I mean,
super literal,
I-
it would be looking at the thing again.
Yeah, but oftentimes, like when we say that we revise something, we read it through, and we like edit it.
Yeah.
And that's like how editing works.
Yeah. We
We
usually.
go over history, and we edit out the parts we don't like. I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh, geez, that's even worse. Usually, when we look at something a second time, we use a different lens because that's what we do when we look at poetry. We look at prose. We say, okay, let's use a romantic lens. Let's use a comedy lens. Let's use whatever lens we want to see if there's that element in a story or in a poem for analytical reasons, just to see how our brains work and have a thought experiment. So that's normal for what I would study. And we would never want to change the thing because it's like having a fruitcake. It's got all these little pieces, but the first time you ate a slice, you didn't pick up on all the flavors because there's so many. And then you think, wait a second, let me chew through and let me pay attention to the sour. Oh, there's limes in there. Oh, there's lemons in there. Whatever the fruit you pick up. So that's what we want to do when we go back and look at something, not say, oh, there's chocolate chips in this fruit salad, or no, there's not, you idiot. What are you talking about? Anyway.
Wait, are you telling me that a lens is there in order to see whether something's there and not to project it into the thing?
I would hope so. That's the
Because
general
the
idea.
feminists, the feminists, the wokies are doing the latter.
We know, I know. It's like a filter. It's not a
Are you
lens.
saying they're doing academia wrong?
They're using the Marxist dialectic or the dialectical materialism. Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
Evidence, new questions. So, the idea of revisionism is a fairly old one, and the name turned up somewhere in the 1960s, 70s, I believe. But the idea goes back a lot longer than that. In the 19th century, towards the end of the century, we have people like W.E.B. Du Bois, an African-American writer, researcher, historian, political activist, who suggested it might be a good idea if history in America looked not only at white people and their decisions, but also...
Did you just say white?
He said white.
Uh-oh.
Thomas Sowell has extra bones to pick with Dubois all the time in his books. It's great.
black people and indigenous people and Asian people and their decisions, and Latin people, because their stories and influence in history was huge, and although the power to publish rested with the white wealthy people, these stories might also be just as important. And so
But are they? On what scale?
So he's saying because the white rich people own the paper press, that therefore they wrote all the books, or they allowed which books to get written?
I think it's a variant of the victors write history,
but because the victors,
because of your systemic power, there is only white history and no other history.
yeah, we own.
In the
Instead of
West.
instead of the victors, it's the oppressors.
It sounds like we own the papyrus. You can't. Therefore, we're going to write whatever we want.
Nobody can write or publish anything but white people. I wonder how Dubois wrote anything.
Oh, no.
That's a paradox.
I'd also like to
Revisionism.
say that the people who write history are the people who actually bother to write it down, because what happened with the Chinese and the Xiongnu. The Xiongnu didn't write anything down, and then the Xiongnu disappeared, and we don't know exactly what happened to them. We think that they became the Huns, but they never wrote it down. So I'd say that it's not even as far as the printing press. The printing press is what decides which books get published, but there's also who bothers to write things down.
Right.
Which
Hey,
is
our
another-
ancestors wrote a lot of stuff down on tree bark and animal skins,
Ah.
and it's all rotten away, so we don't know anything.
Well, that's why I always say we don't say Socrates. We say Plato's Socrates, because Socrates never wrote anything down. Plato never wrote anything down. People had to listen to Plato's stories and wrote those down. So it's kind of this secondhand oral tradition that someone eventually said, "Okay, Plato, you're telling too many stories. We got to write these down." And finally, someone did. So
And that's why Aristotle is the true chad.
because he actually
Because he-
wrote things down.
He wrote his own thoughts.
He
down.
had to.
He also read himself. Other scholars of his time had slaves to read to them.
There's no way anyone else could actually understand Aristotle to write it down, so that he just had to do it himself. There's no other way that would have worked.
And when you read him, it's not that difficult.
Well,
It says a lot about his peers.
yeah. Well, anyway,
At least politics is a very simplistically written book.
right. Yes, but everything else outside of poetics and politics, maybe logic is actually a little confusing too. It's easy, but it gets complicated later on. Anyway, let's keep going.
It had its birth. The 19th century and the 18th century Enlightenment period, a lot of history was just sort of passed down in books. People rarely seemed to question interpretations of the past. Now, the Renaissance, of course, the rebirth of, if you like, classical European culture, Greek and Roman texts are being refound, architecture is inspired by the past, but people aren't necessarily telling the difference between fact and fiction in historical writings. People aren't necessarily looking at myths and stories from 1,500 years before.
Are you sure about that? We have entire faculties dedicated to
Yeah.
interpreting stories from the Middle Ages to the Dark Ages to Egyptian times. Like, what do you mean?
He himself just used the term interpretations of, not questioning interpretations of history. If they're written down, they're written down. And we assume that whoever wrote things down probably meant it that way.
Yeah,
Like
there's also-
Aristotle in politics makes several from his point of time names historical examples of other city states in his area as well as peoples far away.
But
There's
what was that?
also Ibn Khaldun, who protests that a lot of the Arab chroniclers of his time did not really sort through the bits of information and history that they gathered and copied down in their books, which shows that this idea existed around before what this chap here claims.
Yeah. Also, his thinking is very naive, I would say, because it kind of implies that people always that everything has many different meanings and stuff like that, and up to the modern people to interpret it the way it should be interpreted.
Yeah.
And some things in history are simply lied about, and then we uncover, oh, it's actually different. That's not an interpretation. That's just the uncovering of a lie. For example, in my hometown, they discovered when there were construction works for housing projects, some very gruesome things happened. There were bodies falling out of the side of the hole in the ground that they were digging for the foundation. And it turned out that area had been a POW and political prisoner camp. And the Soviets then claimed, oh, that was the Nazis. The Nazis did that. And then turned out that camp was founded in the 50s. So probably not the Nazis. Turned out it was a communist political prisoner camp.
Yeah, and this is actual history stories. We could take a look at psychology or people who study Jungian archetypes in stories or in actual history. We can do that with dreams. We could do that with therapy. They're always interpreting where these images are coming from as a sign of our times. So they could look at from the past 30 years, the past 100 years, the past 300 years. So it's not just history. It's not just books. It's also other areas of academia. So, yeah, weird statement.
And it might be fantasy as much as woods to our times, the 20th and 21st centuries, especially after World War II, after the Vietnam War, after a variety of huge cultural revolutions. In the 1960s, 70s, people really do start questioning history. They start questioning historians. If any of you guys were writing...
This seems very off the cuff. It sounds like he's just sort of reminiscing on a lecture he might have heard a few months back, and he's like, oh yeah, that meant a lot to me.
It also just kind of coincides with the whole, Cold War stuff and all of that. I think it's just Soviets basically spreading into the academic circles and sowing discord. It's almost sounds like that to me.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, and that requires you to question us, just as we question science and medicine a lot right now because of the huge scandals that have happened and are still wrecking academia right now, where we have medical Lysenkoism just spreading nonsense about biology, which again comes from the socialist communist side that is trying to take it over. And on that matter, as he mentions the last century, sadly, the Soviets have embellished the whole Nazi genocide thing, and that is to the detriment of the actual history of it and how bad it is. Because once we figure that out, it gives ammunition to Holocaust deniers. Because they then can say, oh, see, if that was bullshit, then maybe everything is bullshit. And that's why you shouldn't lie about these things. You shouldn't embellish things. You shouldn't make the monster worse than it is. It says, as I keep saying, if you had brought the propaganda that Hitler eats babies for breakfast, and we need to go to war because of that, and then it turns out, oh, he's a vegan or vegetarian. Well, how can he have eaten babies then? Then people start to question, well, why should we believe any of the other crazy things said about the Nazis? That's why you must not embellish the monsters.
All right, we got some super chats. Let's go through those and get back to the video. From Vladimir Dragunov, thank you, sir. Is this guy a closet fascist or closet communist? I don't know. We're not sure about this guy yet. He seems academic, but he's also just rambling. So we're not sure.
Considering the state of his hair, I'd say communist.
Oh dear.
By the way, about what he said with regards to questioning things about history, I seem to recall seeing in the book that I didn't finish reading, but I read part of it, that the main body of the book was written during the 19th century by C.W.C. Oman, and the footnotes were by some guy, I think, between the 1920s and maybe 1960s at most, where they talk about the history of warfare, and I forget if it's the main author or the guy writing the footnotes who questions the amounts of the contemporary late antiquity historians claiming like an army of 90,000 people and saying, well, we don't think that they could have actually fielded that size of army, etc., etc. But that is the only example that I can think of at the moment.
That sounds
and
like
it doesn't-
battlefield denial. Battle list
Yeah.
denial.
Yeah, well, it's hard to get
That
approximations
doesn't work.
unless you actually talk to the organizers that were not part of the battle. They knew what was going on, and they said, "Yeah, we sent
Yeah.
X number of troops, and that's what happened." Yeah,
Yeah. And they have seen people who can't estimate amounts of people. And also with regards to army sizes in particular, this or amounts of things, these things tend to be kind of obscured quite often, as in sometimes they might change the number a little bit and like make it a little bit higher or a little bit lower, make it a bit more fantastical, but still keep it within a certain range. And like some traditions, they would be more exact with it. Others they'd maybe play around with it a bit more, maybe to try to do something which later down the line you need to pick apart from these earlier historians.
all right. Here's our next super chat. We'll get back to the video. Mr. Vladimir Dragonoff again. Thank you. Notice which word had to be censored. Oh, is that why you spelled it strange? I was like, wait. All right. Yeah, YouTube's getting weird these days, I guess. 3 minutes in. Here we go.
60s, 70s, pop it in the comments. That'd be really cool to learn what you were studying, what you were reinterpreting. But this idea is basically born is developed where what we do is we take big dusty old history books just full of dates and facts. We take the new evidence we have from new manuscripts, new interpretations or translations, new archaeology, new finds, new scanning and analysis techniques.
Really?
We apply them to this dusty old history book, and we see what no longer works. And
Wait, you use laser scanners on old books?
Well, no, I'm assuming there's some piece of archaeology that he can use with, or paleontology, whatever he's trying to carbon date, or figure out the atomic structure of to see, they used an alloy during this war, therefore they were bulletproof or whatever. It's like, no.
Yeah, I think he tried to make a joke, but there was neither comedic timing nor intonation for it.
Yeah, if we learned that some medieval group started smelting copper with their iron and they had a more flexible, lighter metal, therefore the steel could penetrate it more, you're like, sure, maybe that's why they lost. There's all kinds of reasons why you lose a battle, so
The
fine.
manuscripts was something that I was like, the manuscripts are like more dusty old books, and it's like comparing dusty old books to dusty old books, which I think he kind of shoots himself in the leg with that argument. And also with regards to manuscripts, there's generally a certain way with regards to working with manuscripts. You figure out where it was from, how well it was preserved, who wrote it, and what biases he might have, and then from the different manuscripts you might piece together something combined of what happened, or maybe say, okay, this manuscript is reliable. This new manuscript that we found is interesting, but we don't think it's very reliable, so we're not going to pay it much attention.
Yeah, and to ruin the joke fully, applying various kinds of scanners to old pages has a lot of merit, as some monasteries, for example, since paper was sometimes limited, they would just use pages of other works, turn it by 90 degrees and then write over that.
But
I remember seeing a bunch of books that were found that the text, the ink, they don't know who wrote this, what language it was, the pictures of of plants. They're not sure where those plants came from. It was like I can't remember the name of the book, but it was like a series of pages about random topics of a
I
certain.
think I know what you mean, but I forgot the title.
It was like religion,
India?
mysticism. Sorry,
Is it from India by any chance?
probably not. It might have been Saudi Arabian. It could have been in the area. I'd have to. I found it online. It was like this is like this mysterious book that no one can interpret. So I don't know. Then we have to take into account that people of the time have their own stories of things that have happened and may not line up with everything. So
Chat says the Voynich manuscript.
Voynich.
I think years ago I've seen a video about it, a documentary.
Okay.
That was just confusing. Itself confused and didn't know what to do with it. I'm a bit upset, annoyed with his use of the word reinterpretation, because the only time I would reinterpret anything about history is when I gain new knowledge. I don't just sit down and reinterpret the stuff I already know. That would only happen if some inspiration particle hits me. And that would still mean there's technically new knowledge through some understanding of something I have missed before.
Yeah.
So it's technically the same thing as gaining new knowledge.
Shit. But Jimmy, you might be saying, isn't that just what the whole point of pretty much every history and archaeology PhD is to find something, an old theory that can now be disproven, or a new theory that needs to be proven, and to do that in your work? Isn't that what all historians and archaeologists do?
Why is he doing a slow zoom in?
Find new evidence so that we learn new things about the past and see it in a different way? Yes. Pretty much yes. Pretty much modern history and archaeology is entirely the revision of past interpretations of history. So, revisionism is using new evidence and using new questions on old evidence to reinterpret the past, basically. What revisionism isn't is negating the past or denying the past happened. So those are two different things. Negationism and denialism. And negationism is a part of denialism, if you like. So we'll basically be talking about denialism in terms of what revisionism isn't. So what revisionism isn't is changing the past. The past happened the way it happened. On God's rewind button on the cosmic VCR.
Yeah, but what we do, and what revisionists in good faith and in bad faith do, is that they question the validity of sources. And if you take out certain sources, the possible legit interpretation of history changes.
Yeah, he seems to.
Some people do this, the ones doing it in bad faith, they do it for a purpose, so they try to nuke sources that they don't like.
Yeah, he seems to be painting a picture of like a tapestry, and you get one piece that overlaps another, and then you find another, and that you have this weird puzzle piece thing that doesn't change what came before. It just overlaps it to make it more true. But we get stories that are contradictory all the times. So,
Yep.
What do you do there?
There's also how what he called revision is basically, it's not revision. It's basically you apply the scientific method, which is use the tools that you have to look at what's in front of you and figure out what is actually there. Which I'm not sure that's what revision is. From what I can understand, revision is when you look over something, and if you see something that is out of place, then you change it. Like when you revise something, when you edit something.
Yeah.
Not. My English could not be.
Yeah. All he's describing is, well, we have some new data, and it's the same as the old data. There's just more of it, or it just overlaps what we already know. Therefore, we're just adding on top the pile of what we already know. So it's like you read another book, you read another journalist, you read another historian, and they all add up. Maybe they got some dates off, maybe they got some numbers off, but it's roughly the same thing he's trying to say, I guess. It boils down to you read more on the topic by other people.
Is the same. The things happened, but the way that we see them in the present, and that is the study of the past. The study of the discipline of history, by the way, is historiography, literally writing about the subject of history, and that is fun sometimes.
I would say.
You find that.
Sorry?
He basically said that, yeah, things happened, and that cannot be changed, but we can change the way we look at it. So it is kind of what we said before, more of a revisionism, because he is now saying that you have to look at things, that things can be interpreted basically completely different than what has happened. So it is almost a malicious thing to do.
It's almost contrary to what he said before, because all he said was we're not changing or negating, but now we have a different perspective. It's wait a second.
Yeah.
So how is it
Now
different?
we can reinterpret the history as certain people being the bad guys.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what this means. The evidence is the same, or there's more of it. That's what revision does. However, we could reinterpret the evidence. You're like, wait, why would you do that? What's the point?
If there's no probable cause to do it, why do it? And I'd also like to note that, at least I think that one of the reasons why people started writing things down to begin with was to tell people things, to teach them things, to convey messages from their time to future times, and I think that what historiography would be like. Okay, we're listening to all these different streams and stories and trying to feel around them to get down to what actually happened, so that maybe we could learn something more from what actually happened beyond what the person tells us, and not, okay, we're sitting from our comfortable position and we look at what he said and we'll decide whether we like it or not, and maybe we should tell a different story because we don't like the story that he's telling us.
Yeah, because the perspective could be, as I say, a lens or a filter. And he's saying not to lie about history, because that would be what revisionism to him is not, but to use a different perspective, which could mean many things. So, yeah, not the best interpretation.
Dusty old tome, and then you write about how bad it is, or how good it is, or the techniques that were used, or the techniques that could have been used.
Yeah, but you're making a value judgment. Is that because it's supposed to be good, or you think it's good or bad? That's different. You can't just say, oh, World War II happened. Yeah, all these people died. That's good. You're like, whoa. Why is that good? How is that a good thing, sir?
I think that the missing component here is humility. Between the two different ways that you could look at a story that is being told critically. If you're giving a value judgment, or if you're looking at it critically to figure out what stands behind it, to figure out what's actually going on.
Yeah.
If you're just making a value judgment to decide whether or not you like it or not, then I guess you'd say it's a bit more of a prideful position, because you think you'd have moral superiority. The other one is, even if you don't like it, you're approaching it with some humility and say, this guy had access to something which I don't have at the moment, or might have, but I'm not quite sure of. And let's just follow it through. We'll see what actually stands there, and we'll see if his argument actually stands to it or not.
Yeah, this is like arguing I like Aristotle more because he wrote everything down, and Plato sucks because he just talked all the time. I mean, that's not, you don't put value because of your preferences. You put value because of what it meant at the time, what it means today, why we still talk about these old white dead guys from thousands of years ago, why that's a relevant thing. Yeah,
why do we still talk about Plato and can get his complete works with gold rim in the library, but not Aristotle?
Well, there's plenty of reasons for that. It's too expensive, but it's just, what value is it today and why? Why is it relevant now, as opposed to saying, well, I love strawberries, But I have to I should be evaluating this apple pie objectively as opposed to my preferences. That's where I'm unless he has a utilitarian view of good and bad, and it's all right, fine. But he's using terms that my brain is like, you shouldn't be talking that way.
I was not making that up, by the way.
I know.
Anyway, I digress. Denialism. Denialism, as the name suggests, is denying things about the past. And the obvious one here is, of course, the Holocaust denier. And Holocaust denial is not in itself historical revisionism in terms of the discipline that we're talking about here. Denialism is having a huge, overwhelming amount of irrefutable evidence, a core of irrefutable evidence.
Wait, denialism is having irrefutable evidence?
And then
That's how it makes he seem like it. But
yeah, he's going to finish his thought. Yeah.
Okay.
For example, that by maybe taking false evidence or taking evidence that doesn't fit and only using that, right? That is, you deny that.
That's cherry picking. We've seen that all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, that's fine.
okay,
We get it.
yeah, but okay, let's just say that he actually finished the thought correctly.
Yeah.
It didn't happen because I say it didn't happen, and it doesn't fit my narrative. Even though you're standing next to an elephant of evidence that it did happen. That is denialism. Denialism is saying, nope, didn't happen. Nuh-uh. No. Didn't
Please
didn't
continue.
happen. Negationism is negating evidence to fit your bias or your...
It's the same. The result's the same.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you have a cherry pick that says the same thing as saying it didn't happen. It's the same result.
Then why is he using two different words to? Why is he then using two different words to explain the same concept?
Because one is a lie and the other one is a lie by omission. Because you're saying there's 100 records, but I believe in the 99th one that says this didn't happen.
Everyone is trying to turn things on its head. Like one of the arguments that Holocaust deniers use is, but the gas chambers weren't hermetically sealed. They had wooden doors. If you have ever been in in gas mask training in the army, it doesn't bloody matter whether the door's even closed, because the density where the stuff comes out will be higher than outside.
Diffusion is across air is
what
pretty slow.
What they don't bring up is because if the deniers would be honest about this topic, they would go into the minutia of aerosol distribution and the how dense must it still be to cause health damage, etc. Because the gas would also have to dissipate again in order to bring in new people to kill. And how much of that would just gas out throughout the entire camp? Would that have effects? Would that have effects on the staff? Because the Nazis wanted to minimize the physical and psychological effects of the mass murder onto their own people. Because that's the reason why they in the end went to this very passive aggressive industrialized version of it. Because they tried everything else before and it just destroyed the psyche of their soldiers.
Yep. There's also with regards to the wooden doors argument. What I tell a person who says, but they had wooden doors, then I tell them, okay, go into a room, just close the doors, close the windows. You don't have to seal it hermetically. Have 5
and now
people
fart.
inside. Yes. My thought exactly. You're going to smell it, regardless of what happens. Yes, it might take time for it to dissipate. It might eventually dissipate if the room isn't hermetically sealed, but it's still going to stay there long enough for to take effect.
Yeah, I would.
And,
If you've been in a hobby group and it's summer and somebody had the great idea to take off his shoes but still has his socks on. Exactly. Or alternatively, just go to a Warhammer store.
Jesus, you guys. Did you think of your mother's cooking? Can you remember that going throughout the entire house? That's more pleasant.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Okay, well, there's just as bad then. Okay, anyway. Let's keep going.
My grandma's cooking, that was great.
Think of an example of evidence, for example, that many people in ancient Egypt looked like modern black people, or modern.
no,
Oh God.
no.
So this is where this is going.
He's
No.
revisionism.
Well, no, he's talking about denialism, right?
In ancient Egypt, there were essentially, like, from what I can understand, there were two general phenotypes. There were the Egyptians of the north, of Lower Egypt, who had actually pretty pale skin. Think of like I need to find a picture somewhere. Whose skin was actually pale like this, like a lightish beige, I guess you could say. And the Egyptians of Upper Egypt whose skin was a bit more on the reddish side, but not like actual sub-Saharan African black. That's what that would be the Nubians, who were farther south. And the Nubians had a lot of cultural exchange with Egypt, so you had people moving around, but they weren't Egyptians.
Yeah, and I find it so sad that these black supremacists never talk about the Nubians when they had. I find a very interesting style of building pyramids. They built very small ones, but tons of them. And with the big temples, like in, oh God, I was 6 when I read these books. Damn it. Yeah, with the big temples, there were depictions of black people, but they were on the sides as the work slaves who built stuff, not the actual ruling class.
All right.
North African people, and slim evidence.
Wait.
That
what did he say about
they
North
looked
African people?
like North African people in ancient Egypt looked like modern black people, or modern North African people, and the slim evidence.
What does modern black people even mean?
Well,
North Africans do not look black.
Yeah, they're like Tunisia and a bunch of other, it's like,
Yes. Some of them even have pale skin.
Yeah.
The North Africa. Wait, actually, maybe this is something that is easier to dig up.
Well, Carthago certainly wasn't black.
Yeah, but these people were from like Lebanon, and the people in Lebanon are actually pretty fair-skinned. Libyan.
Okay. Syrians weren't black either.
Nope.
They look like us here in Germany. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Trying
All right, we're gonna keep going.
The slim evidence that they looked like your average Roman guy may come from later Greek statuary, it may come from later Roman statuary or inscription level.
Oh God, this is amazing. So this guy tells us that he's against that historical revisionism is bad, to then do the historical revisionism in the communist way.
I could easily call up my Egyptian PhD friend and say, hey, can you tell me what the race of Egyptians were back then? They're gonna be like, here's Mountains of evidence. Here we go. So,
Also, nobody makes the Roman claim.
Yeah.
Cleopatra was
Yeah.
Ptolemaic.
She was Macedonian.
Right.
Essentially, Ptolemy was one of Alexander the Great's generals. He was Macedonian. He married his cousin, and then after that, they all married their siblings in the Egyptian fashion. So she had not a drop of Egyptian blood. I don't know how good looking she was, because there was quite a bit of inbreeding by that point, because it was like 7th or 8th generation by the time you get to the Cleopatra who we know. There were a few Cleopatra beforehand, because they all called themselves either Ptolemy or Cleopatra. But yeah,
evidence, but the evidence that they were black and brown people in ancient Egypt will be negated by negationists.
No.
They'll say that doesn't count. That's just nonsense.
Nobody makes that claim. I have never heard of anybody saying that there were no black or brown people at all there.
No.
That's nonsense. That's a straw man.
People are just saying what they were doing there. They were definitely not the rulers.
Okay, so the thing is, well, the people themselves, the actual Egyptians, as stated before, were not black or brown either. But the thing is that what he's doing, we're dealing with full projection here. Cookie?
Yeah, what I was going to say was that the Egyptians, it depends where. Saying not brown is not really exactly correct.
Or
Like,
reddish
the
isn't
rest-
brown.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like
When they say
I think
brown,
if
they
you
mean
look at
African.
modern Egyptian. No, not that type. I was thinking like Middle Eastern type.
No, that is never what they mean when they say black or brown.
Yeah. Where was I? Right. So this is here. He's going full projection mode. He is putting up the straw man that there are people who claim that there were no black or brown people at all in ancient Egypt, and then makes the claim, the negation of that, says the negation of that is true, that there were black and brown people everywhere, and probably in power, we was kings and all, and that the white people were just in the minority. So he's the one who's negating. It's beautiful.
all right.
Something that the aliens put there to confuse you. And negationism rolls forward. I haven't explained negationism very well. Feel free, if you want to explain it better in the comments, by all means, please do.
You're a good example of
But
negationism.
Revisionism, as a discipline in history, isn't that. The point of revisionism and revisionist history is not to deny the past happened or to negate evidence from the past. It is to look at the past and to look at that evidence and combine it with new evidence and see if we can then just edit our chapters a little bit in our history books, right? We're not all learning anymore.
Yeah, but editing could mean taking out. Like, what are you saying?
That's what he
It's
said.
like
He
communism
wants to
killed
remove
this many
pieces.
people. No, it killed this many people. No, it killed this many people. Anyway, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Until
is
you wind up with the solution of communism didn't kill anyone, because all of these iterations were not communism.
Communism didn't kill anyone by sending them to Siberia. They just died because they didn't have winter clothes.
They should have backed.
Not Harold Godwinson through the eye and he died with an arrow to the eye at Hastings. Right? We're now being taught that the arrow to the eye theory is probably an anachronism. He was likely hacked to death by Norman knights, and bits of him were then buried nearby as best as they could manage. We're not learning anymore. The Romans were civilized, toga-wearing philosophers who lived in marble splendor all their lives. We're now learning that although there were...
Who makes these claims?
Yeah, that was a weird one.
I would say
Someone
idiots
very-
who only look
someone
at the
uneducated.
surface. Yeah.
Yeah.
People who only look
Pseudo-intellectuals.
at the surface, who just do not bother to actually learn anything, but just, oh, pretty pictures.
Yeah, here's a beautiful, romantic painting of ancient Rome. Wow, that's must be look what it was. It's like, okay, I don't think so.
Everybody who doesn't agree with me is dumb.
In ancient Rome, and togas were worn, the vast majority of people in Rome were living in squalid, poorly built, prone to burning down insulae, wearing...
That is a brick building.
That does not
They
burn.
had a lot of brick buildings too.
They had wonderful concrete. Stuff still stands today. I bet he does he believe that aqueducts burn?
We have ancient scorch marks on villas in Italy that have stood hundreds, thousands of years that are still there. The ramparts.
Pompeii still looks great, aside from having been buried.
Yeah, it's when you knock them down with boulders. Is that when the walls come down, not by burning them?
Yeah, the Romans knew how to build really well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
tunics and sandals, and basically living off their bread, dole, and wine. History changes. The way that we write the past down changes all the time. That is what we do as historians.
Okay, so
Romans
his claim-
did not have meat and fruit,
Yeah,
and
his
all these
claim-
exotic imports in the center of their empire.
Yeah, they
And
watered.
wine is expensive.
Yeah, they watered down their wine if they even owned that. That was like maybe the soldiers had wine, but they never went to work drunk. So everyone had to water down whatever booze they had, if there was any, because the water wasn't always clean. So you had to have some alcohol. What?
There were also rules according to which when if there's water, when do you drink? When do you drink it? What's better? And if not to drink it at all. I know that this isn't from a strictly Roman source, but it is Near Eastern, from like within the Roman world, Sasanian world, circa, I guess, late antiquity, where someone says, if you have to choose between drinking hot water and cold water, I seem to recall what he said was it's best to drink hot water. If you don't have hot water and you have cold water and warm water, best to drink cold water, not warm water, not warm water. Warm as in like lukewarm, room temperature. And if you have to choose between, and if you had to drink that, then only if it's spiced. I probably don't remember the source properly, but I'm assuming that the Romans probably knew this sort of stuff. Like, they knew that if the water smelled bad, then you shouldn't drink from it because it would probably make you sick. If the water was stagnant, maybe you shouldn't drink from it. Like, I doubt anyone would really drink water from a swamp.
You would be surprised.
Only if you're thirsting. If you're thirsting, you'll drink anything.
Yeah, but like in a normal situation, you'd prefer to drink water that came from an aqueduct or from a well or from a spring or from a river, like water that is flowing and not water that is standing still, which is not too difficult to observe from what I can understand. That if you have to choose between water from a moving source and water from a stagnant source, then you always choose from the moving source, never from the stagnant source. And these people were not dumb.
Yeah, but he's making this weird claim that Romans lived in squalor.
The problem of what he's doing is that he is saying that others take tiny minute details and use them to deny other things, and he did basically just that while destroying his argument even further. So yeah,
he is the demon he pretends to fight.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Like, I do not even understand how you can equate most of people in most Romans living in poor conditions and living off of bread and wine. That is astoundingly stupid.
I've never heard something like that. And neither his other superficially naive and deranged claims.
Yeah, he's just switching out a grandiose stereotype for a
Yeah.
For I forget what the word is, for a different stereotype. Also, the thing
There's
with
a straw
Harold
man?
Collins and-
Well,
he puts up a straw man and then says the opposite is true.
this should be a definitional video of just describing terms, not smiling and having a good time and laughing about it. If you're a historian, you are. I've listened to lectures by historians. It's straightforward. It is droll. Is this happened, that happened, and this happened, and that's it. It goes on for hours. Not, hey, this was really fun when we learned the Romans only ate bread or dried barley and some wine. You're like, what? No, there's all kinds of fishing villages and farming villages of ancient Italy. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, we are at
when you drink
9 minutes and
beers.
41 seconds. There we go.
Revisionism can be a good thing. Revisionism is a power for good when it is practiced properly. Revisionism is, like I say, taking a dusty old history book, reading through it and going, I think we've got some evidence that disproves this now. Let's take this evidence, apply it to this.
That's not what you described revisionism as before. You just said we found new evidence that is the same as the old evidence, only there's more of it. So you could add to the story, not negate the story, which you said revisionism was not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that matter, so for many reasons, like standing at an info booth for 10 years every weekend, and everybody when you have an info booth, everybody who wants to talk comes. And that is usually, it's not average citizens. They also show up, but it's especially the people who want to share their ideas. And that's all the flat earthers, all the creationists, all the communists, all the neo-Nazis with their Holocaust denial. So I've heard a lot of Holocaust denial arguments. And many I have been able to refute. Some I haven't, and I haven't found counter-arguments to them. And that worries me. That doesn't change my opinion yet, but I would like to hear people actually refute those points. I won't bring them up here because that I don't want to get the channel to get nuked. But I would, if all the arguments are so stupid, why aren't they all to be just refuted? And there's a relatively famous book in certain circles by a Jonathan Rauch, published through the Cato Institute, called "Kindly Inquisitors," in which he goes through all the censorship laws that were established throughout the decades in various countries around the world, usually under false pretenses. And the same goes for the Holocaust denial law in Germany. And he notes that half the Jews were against the Holocaust denial law because the argumentation was, if Holocaust denial gets forbidden, we won't know the arguments of the deniers anymore. They will fester in darkness where we can't find them, where we can't approach them, where we can't interact with them. And eventually, we will not know how to refute them and then just fear them. And that's where we are now. Most people can't refute half the arguments I know.
Okay.
And if the statement is accurate, maybe we need to revise our understanding of a certain part of the past.
Why?
No longer acceptably accurate.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like there is some weird standard of acceptability to it.
You would think.
I bet he makes moral arguments, not factual.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
The only way I could
sounds off.
see such a claim being made in good faith is that there's reasonable doubt of things that were uncovered or that the source was examined. But that's I guess a way of saying that things were uncovered, of questioning the source or questioning the narrative because there's reasonable doubt, or we want to get more details. that is like these are the only instances of good faith that I can think of. Otherwise, it's okay. We want things to fit a certain way, and this doesn't really fit right. So maybe we'll cherry pick.
One example of ethics in skeletal analysis. So we now have the ability to analyze skeletons and more accurately determine where those people were from or what sex they had. And that is
Please
a very
don't.
important
Exactly,
thing to be
just
able
look
to
at the
do to a
pelvis.
body, because it can.
I so wish he will not make the argument that, oh, but we have a new gender theory now, so we can't actually tell whether they identified as male or female, and that one woman, she was buried with a sword, which means she was non-binary. It has nothing to do with that she wanted the memento of her late husband.
Sex, you can identify very easily, at least with adults. What you do is that you look at the pelvis.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, what you have is that with men, the pelvis is narrower, it's taller, and the hole in the middle is not quite as big.
You could also count the ribs.
Yep.
I didn't know about the ribs thing. I only know about
It's
the
an actual thing.
Huh. What, men have one pair fewer?
Well, on one side.
Yes.
Huh.
It is actually there is a little factoid behind the Eve was made from Adam's rib thing. That's where the idea comes from. People knew, oh, the male skeleton lacks a rib. Oh, I guess that's what God made the woman out of, because she has all the ribs.
Huh.
All right.
Well, you could also look at other things.
Interpreting things like the role this person understanding of that society's gender norms, that can really help. If we don't have a good understanding of that society's gender norms, it can be quite confusing. It can be quite challenging.
Why? How?
Another example.
Most old societies had men and women, and if you claimed to be anything else, you were killed because you were apparently possessed by demons.
Yeah, but why would gender norms have anything to do with analyzing a skeleton? Like, what is he talking about?
He's talking about, well, we don't know how the person identified.
If you're digging up a skeleton and you have gender norms in current year, who cares? What does that have anything to do? Like, what? It's an artifact. Great. What does it look like? It looks like a male skeleton. Fantastic. What's your point?
The historical revisionists like him do try to impose woke gender ideology on 2,000-year-old skeletons.
But the male
to justify that there may have been
it.
to justify that there may have been non-binary people among the Vikings.
Yeah.
Or that there were Africans by looking at their genetics.
Well,
which was, I think, another thing that it was implying. But where a person originally came from, you can, I guess, you can examine their bones and then like take a sample. This is a destructive test, and like compare and look at the different isotopes and compare them to what was growing that region, what was growing in a different region. I really don't know the details of that.
Other than that, you mainly check
DNA. What?
Other than that, you mainly check the Y chromosome.
Yeah, and with regards to DNA, you can only go back to a certain point. I don't think you can even. Maybe you can go back farther than carbon dating. I'm not quite sure. Because they were able to pull DNA off of Neanderthals and Denisovans. What else was I going to say? And also with the gender roles, they don't tell you very much. The reason why is, gender norms. The reason why is, as you said, men and women. But
we know enough about these cultures to know that they didn't have this gender ideology bullshit. Yeah, and most ideas about women warriors were just mythical fan fiction.
Yeah. And also, you can learn a lot more about a culture rather than gender norms by things like like its religion? Just an idea, like what they believed in, which stories
But
they shared.
But
These are
people
more
like
important.
people like him specifically ignore everything that destroys their narrative, because he is mechanically the same as a Holocaust denier, just not about the Holocaust, but everything else. Because that's how communism rewrites history. This is Orwellian.
Yeah, the fact that he even brought up gender norms is already making my brain hurt. There's no need to, if he just wanted to define and give examples of revisionism, great. He didn't do that. He's now talking about the pelvis or the skeleton of bodies, and then current day gender norm. Like this is silly.
He is like all wokies, like all commies, actively conflating sex and gender. And I was right about the hair.
He didn't bring up the pelvis. That's something that I brought up. I
He's
don't
not
think
gonna.
he knows about the thing of looking at the pelvis.
He's not gonna, because that's transphobic.
All right.
Yeah.
Another example of some good old revisionist stuff is the reinterpretation of things like, let's go with it. Let's go with the Second World War. Why not? We'll do some modernism this week. So the reinterpretation of things like
jumping around
the way intelligence was used in the Second World War, the reinterpretation of the intelligence given to generals like Bernard Montgomery or leaders like Winston Churchill. That can be very important as a way of understanding why things happened and how things happened. It can also lead to challenging the hero status that people had in the past.
So you basically want all people that made great accomplishments torn down. Got it. Because you do not like the way history happened. That's what it looks like to me.
And that is an uncomfortable thing. I am a Cymro, I am Cymraeg, I'm from Wales, and we have a 1500-year-old plus tradition of writing heroic songs about our forebears, about our ancestors, and it can be very challenging to have your heroes taken down a peg. They say you should never meet your heroes, right? Well, what do you think we're doing when we're reinterpreting Winston Churchill and seeing that he was an alcoholic racist with some really bad ideas? That's meeting him.
That saved the country. What are you talking about?
His only bad idea, or relevant bad idea, was to leave everything in the east of West Germany to the socialist dictator when the war was started by a socialist dictator invading Poland.
He's the one who decided not to reconcile with Hitler. FDR was willing to, and FDR was a socialist, I think. I'm not entirely sure. But also within the British government, there was not everyone. Not everyone was keen on going to war against Germany. I seem to recall that there was the whole scuffle with the king and Wallace Simpson. That I don't know if that was before the war or during the war. I don't remember exactly. I think the foreign minister wanted to reconcile, but Winston Churchill decided not to. And with regards to bad ideas, we all come up with bad ideas. Part of how we develop as people is, well, we think of bad ideas and then we take them down and we come up with better ones, and then we take these down for the flaws that they have and come up with even better ones. And yes, we'll stick around with some bad ideas. We'll stick around with some flaws. But
yeah, I remember people arguing about Churchill, how he redirected grain from, I think it was India, to the war effort. Like, oh, well, the Indians starved and this, that. It's like you could make arguments on how material was used and who it affected and why, but you have to back it up with facts. You can't just say, oh yeah, because of him he caused a famine in India during the war. It's like, no, he didn't. You can't have one guy say, yeah, we're just going to repurpose India for our own needs, and that caused them to go into famine. That's not how it worked.
Yeah, and in general, Churchill being a flawed man and having made certain mistakes, that's common knowledge.
Yeah, it's like the floods happened, starvation happened, a lot of things happened during the war. You can't say, oh well, he took a lot of grain. It's like, yeah, he took a lot of grain. He didn't take all the grain. He didn't destroy all the fields. He didn't, do what he did to the Ukrainians during the Soviet Russia. There's lots of stuff that happened during the war. So maybe he contributed to it, but it's not. He's the only cause. Anyway,
he's doing the thing again where he puts up the straw man that people think Churchill was this perfect angel thing, and he's the opposite. It's again the same thing. And what he's doing here, as he puts himself up as this important Welsh person that is so proud of his history, or at least somewhat. He's doing exactly what George Orwell described in his essay Notes on Nationalism, in which he tears down his own people. He doesn't care. He may not have wanted the Nazis to win, but he rather shits on his own people in every way possible, and even cheers on the losses of the army of his nation. The anti-nationalist or reverse nationalist does this because he is a nationalist for the socialist state he wants it to be, and he hates that the country currently isn't a socialist tyranny, and he's basically doing that.
all right. Well, this is slowly degrading as the longer we go on.
Yeah, we're gonna reach the 2 minutes of insanity soon.
Oh, yeah.
Him see these heroes through the room of classic television documentary series The World at War, for example, but then you take those glasses off
that series
when you
was
read
weird.
their diaries, or you read the intelligence reports, or you read what their friends and family members were actually saying about their behaviour. Right? That's meeting your heroes. That's getting closer to these people, and that can be really challenging. That can be.
It seems like he's making the standard argument of the leftists. So they all think that right is idolizing certain people and cannot see any of their faults. As it is with Trump, with people like Churchill and some other presidents, we know that they are flawed as hell people. The only reason Poland is in this and half of the Eastern Bloc is in the state it is because Churchill decided that, yeah, let's give it to Stalin. I just hated Nazis. Then that's it. Yeah. We know that these people have faults.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he's explaining it, it's the leftist strawman.
And it is again projection, because that is what the leftists do about their atrocious genocidal leaders.
Yeah,
they make excuses for Stalin, Lenin, Mao, and so on, for Castro, for Trudeau, and and the only times they don't do that is when they then try to say, oh, that guy was actually right wing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because after the war, they didn't vote Churchill back in because they saw him as doing the job they asked him to do. He did it. The war is over. Great. We'll get someone else in there to...
He's a wartime leader.
Exactly.
You need different people you need different leaders for war and for peace.
Yeah, exactly. So all these things they make sense to the people when the time they had them. And maybe it wasn't the best choice, but it was the best choice that they could find. And that's how it worked out. And it did work out. So good for them.
Yeah. I'll also note that in this case, you have a situation of the pot meeting the kettle and calling it black. Like, has he applied the same critical thinking to his own role models?
No, of course not, because he doesn't reflect.
Marx,
he only attacks.
To Lenin.
Oh, dear.
Should I read you some poems by Marx?
No.
Is that great?
Difficult, and that can be where denialism then steps in. It is often easier for us as human beings to accept the idea that fits with our preconceived notions. It can be easier for us as people to take the easy route, right? You don't want to believe that your ancestors did horrible things. You don't want to believe that somebody that you really admired as a kid turns out to be a...
He's projecting.
Oh no, my ancestors did some pretty horrible things.
Oh yeah. I mean, some of it's awesome.
I don't know if my family specifically.
Yeah. the sordid tale of Germany's history. Oh boy.
Yeah, but also the ancestors before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also
Free Roman legions, I tell you. Free Roman legions.
Well, we did 2, probably either 1 or 2. Also, this guy, he's gone to the point where he's projecting. Like everything that he's saying now, he if he were to actually listen to what he's saying, he'd realize that something is going on, and that maybe he should pause at least for a moment and think.
Right. Like when we look at like Alexander the Great, this guy was amazing. He conquered just so much land and so many kingdoms and took so much. Yes, that was brutal. He killed a lot of people. When you think about it, the cost of life, yeah, that's a horrible, horrible thing. And you say, well, why did he do it? That's just his prerogative. That's what he was. He was this force of time. Same with the Mongols. Now, you could say the Mongols were worse on their methods.
Mongols is interesting.
Right.
The Mongols is interesting because you have Temujin, and you have Ogadai and his successors. Temujin, his campaigns were mainly reactionary. In the beginning, it was revenge campaigns for things that were done to his father, to his uncle, to him directly. That's part of the reason why he didn't invade India. The reason why he went and slaughtered his way through Iran was because he sent emissaries and they were claimed to be spies, and their heads were sent back, and this made him furious. Ogadai, on the other hand, felt like he deserved the entire world. Well, he was an alcoholic who whenever he like, there's a story that he was told, okay, he can only drink 1 cup a day, so he made his cup as big as a barrel. Anyway, Ogadai believed that the entire world belonged to him, so he just said, okay, you will subject yourselves to me now, or I will destroy you. If they'd say no, he'd destroy them. Temujin acted with a lot more nuance. And with regards to Alexander the Great, with regards to his flaw, was after the Battle of Issus, he saw the splendor that Darius had, and he Persianized, and the Greeks didn't like it, and he killed Parmenion. I think he killed Parmenion because I don't remember exactly, but Parmenion was one of the people who disapproved of him leaning into the Persian archetype of King of Kings, because Alexander thought that he deserved it, when Greek and Macedonian kings were a lot more modest than Persian ones. So he kind of lost control there, and those who told him no, he wound up killing them accidentally while being drunk or while being angry, and it didn't end very well for him because he may have been assassinated in Babylon. Maybe he just got sick and died. It's unclear.
Yeah.
The short of it is Alexander was a good general, but not a good statecrafter.
Yeah.
Bit of a git. It's tough. And, like, full disclosure, I grew up.
What is with this camera angle? I'm just, like, every time I stare, why is it just your head? Like, can you just, like, zoom down a bit, or?
It's because he's not a Twitch girl.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Then the camera angle would be the opposite.
All right.
It's because it's a male camera.
With this admiration for Winston Churchill, I had relatives who had fought in the Second World War and who really admired him and said, oh, Mr. Churchill, even though they should have been calling him Sir Winston, was this great man. He was a wonderful man. He was a fantastic speaker. And I thought, he sounds kind of like he's hammered on champagne and doesn't really know where he is. But okay, whatever you say, guys. And then as I grew older, those preconceived notions were challenged. That's a thing. I've had to do that. That's a thing I've had to do. And
Why did you?
What did you read books? What happened, dude? Did you actually learn?
Did you get to a leftist student group that told you all of this, and you never looked any of it up?
All right.
It's usually how it goes.
We're getting there. He's trying to hate his country, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Read Notes on Nationalism.
From some perspectives, that is why revisionism is seen as bad. It is seen as bad because people think it's changing the past. It's trying to
You just said you changed your opinion. You just said you changed your opinion because you learned something new. When you said revisionism is not doing that, but it is. What is happening, sir? Are heroes good or bad? Which ones?
I think he's trying to say they're bad.
Trying to write history and trying to spoil what it's doing at all. What it really is doing is re-examining the past. But if you have a really strongly held belief, if you have a core belief...
Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. That's what the word actually is. Revision. Looking again. And now you're telling us about your preconceived notion that you want to align history to words.
And that belief is challenged. Clear, irrefutable evidence. That is a desperately difficult thing to happen to you. That is a desperate...
Not really. I mean, if you have if you have evidence supporting...
That's what he's describing.
Yeah, if you think Santa Claus is real and then you look at the evidence, like, wait a second, that's not possible scientifically, historically, mathematically. Okay, then great.
Yeah, he's proven to us that he is effectively illiterate about Egypt and surrounding areas.
Oh, jeez, Egypt, the ancient world. Oh.
He probably couldn't tell us about the economic bubble in the Old Kingdom.
If dedicated their life to writing millions of words, to publishing books, to doing talks, to going on tours, to research.
What are you talking about? Who? What topic? Are you talking about like religious people? Like they believe in God and they go, wait a second, this is blind faith. I don't know what to think anymore. Is that what you're
he's in his magic world and we have to mind read him.
Yeah, who's the straw man you're attacking? I don't know. Like who's this guy who millions of words dedicated to things? Is that like Karl Marx and he thinks he understands the economics, supply and demand? Which one? Who?
I think it's his past self.
Oh, that'd be funny.
Sacrificing time with family and friends to prove your theory. And then all of a sudden...
What theory? Of history? What are you talking about? What theories? What part of history is theoretical to you that you have to contemplate it without referencing it? Do you not read the right history book? Like, what's the problem here? Were there two historians and they give different interpretations? Like, what is it?
After 30 or 40 or 50 even years, that theory is disproven. Imagine how heartbreaking that must be. It is an absolute...
But wait, what are you talking about? Give me an example.
Yeah.
Where are we going? The Earth is flat.
Have you considered that socialism is a lie, is a scam, is a lie, because it has been shown to not work and just kill people all the time? Have you accepted those facts?
Yeah, right.
No, I think he's just projecting. Like what he's describing now is what is like the type is what would happen to him if this were to happen to him.
Yeah, but usually
this is what he's talking about.
Usually when you start a setup like this, you say, what if you believed in a thing like X? And give the example of a concrete example, like I believe in God, in the Judeo-Christian faith, Christianity, or Lutheranism, or what. Like pick one and say, okay, great. And then along comes, I don't know, Soren Kierkegaard. Along comes, my girlfriend. Whatever. Pick a thing. You know, give me a solid, concrete. You can't just say generically, I have millions of words I've written about this thing for 50 years, and then my life changes because of what? I don't even know what you're talking about. What's going on? Dude, have you ever attended a lecture where a historian is talking?
Oh, this is a proper pseudo-intellectual who is at best of average intelligence, but believes himself to be 2 standard deviations above.
Well, you could just be really
Because
bad
he-
at teaching and storytelling. It could be that. I don't know.
Because his world has been changed once about some new information he was presented in a skewed fashion, and that changed his mind. And he is still completely magically baffled by it, which is why he still didn't have time to wash his hair.
Soul destroying thing. It is a thing that has killed people. It has killed people to have that done to them.
What are we talking
And that
about?
is really, really important to remember. It is
World
important for us
model
to remember as historians and archaeologists
collapses.
not to look at somebody with an outdated interpretation and say, you're stupid and your work is worthless.
That's what you're telling us
Outdated.
about the Black Africans.
Outdated interpretation.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest tells he had in this video. It just
Hey,
everything that is not conforming to my ideology is outdated or wrong.
I'm just confused. The past 2 minutes, I've just been like, what is he talking about?
he's misusing the word, by using the word interpretation or reinterpretation, again, he is showing that it's not about facts for him.
He is sending a
It's
message
important
to
for us
himself
to-
to reflect upon, which he never will. This is my take of making sense of all of this.
Yeah.
At least along the
Yeah, it's
simpler
been
route.
it's been downhill.
Give him 10 years.
It's been downhill halfway through, and we're just like, I'm just a bit confused where he's going anymore because he's just all talking theoretically. And you're like, what?
Middle-aged man rambles at sky.
Say, your work laid the foundation, your work was groundbreaking, but
Who are you talking? Is he like Isaac Newton?
He can't bring
Like,
up examples.
Yeah, like is he like I don't know, trying to do direct current, and he's competing with Bell? Like, what are you talking about? Is it Tesla? Like, is that who you're talking about?
unfortunately, interpreted because we have new evidence that suggests some of your conclusions may need to be reworked. And there are gentle ways to do that. There are kind ways to do
More
that. And there are
examples.
respectful ways to do that. And
Just remember, he didn't say anything about the history and stuff like that. He said your conclusions. So you looked at the history and you reinterpreted it wrong.
Assuming
This
Because
is
we have
basically
new evidence.
this is basically it wasn't real communism.
assuming he's talking about history, I don't even know what he's talking about anymore. He could be talking about a scientific theory. He could be talking about geological things that happened. Like, I don't know.
He's just rambling in the realm of vagueness.
Did he like have a fight with his professor for his PhD or something? And he's like, "Oh my God, I got to stop doing my thesis. I screwed up." And you're like, "Okay, then fine." But what is going?
Oh, I think he's still flashed that his mind was changed about something, probably for the first time in his life, whether for better or worse.
I gotta know what he's talking. Because I'm just.
And he needs to tell us about that.
Yeah, we got like, what is this story he's talking about? Who?
Maybe he's trying to get people to his own camp because I think no, this is just a theory, a conjecture that I thought of now, that if you can be swept away relatively easily by ideas put in your head, to which none of us is infallible to, and you were to listen to the stream and implant it in your head, then you would wind up falling in his own camp without really noticing it. Which that's already saying that he's doing that would be a declaration of malicious intention, and I'm not sure exactly how true that would be in this case. that's one way that it could potentially go, that he wants you to think that way, so that you'll see why he's right, and why, I guess, socialism, communism is right, even though these tools exactly should be applied to socialism, and he says it, and he has it somewhere in his head, and he just needs to put the pieces together right.
Yeah, but his mind automatically filters out everything he doesn't.
Yeah. So
That's why Africa. That's why Egyptians were black now,
yeah,
because that's what he wants to be true.
yeah. Even though the Egyptians were never black, unless you talk about the Nubians when they were conquered by the Egyptians, and therefore part of Egypt, or when the Nubians conquered Egypt, and then the pharaohs were black because they were actually Nubians.
Briefly.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that happened, but that is not what these people ever talk about because they never mention Nubians.
Anyway,
Yeah, nobody talks about King Tirhaka.
I just got news that Trump was shot at a rally, so that's kind of cool. Anyway, it's hot news right now.
Okay.
We're going to keep going, though.
We'll keep going, and then we'll touch on that stuff.
Yeah, we'll go check out what happened to Trump. That's amazing.
It is different. In this day and age, we're expected to be on one side or the other. Nuance is rarely touted as a positive feature in the modern human mind, but nuance on this channel is absolutely central to what we do. And it's important that we bring a nuanced understanding of history and the discipline of history to our work. If somebody says, well, this is how my granddad taught me. My granddad taught me that...
You know what annoys me? The leftists complain that Tick isn't a real historian, when he actually is. He is studied. He has the damn toilet paper with his name on and the sticker. This guy does not sound like a historian in any way.
It sounds like he went to maybe study history for like 3 years and never got his degree, and he's like feeling bad about it. I don't like. There's some.
He sounds like he studied history by watching BreadTube.
Oh no, I don't think he's that bad. That's maybe, but that's pushing it. I think there's something that happened in his life that he's making such a like. He seems to like Vikings. He seems to like fantasy and stuff.
But he is so inarticulate. And from a historian, I would automatically expect to be somewhat more articulate than he is, because as a historian, you read so many texts, you automatically pick up the diction of certain people you read.
I'd also note that if he actually studied history, even if he didn't pass the exams, but actually studied history, he'd know more than I do. And I seem to know more than him. So, and most of my information is from like secondhand sources, not from like the good primary stuff that you study in university, at least theoretically. So maybe he learned communist history, but not actual history.
Dunkirk was a great victory for the British, a demonstration of how great the British Empire was. You might be able to say, that's ridiculous, thousands died, it was an embarrassing defeat. Or you might be able to say, and I absolutely respect that your grandfather taught you that, that's a very important memory that you have of him.
Now, Dunkirk was important for morale, because the British did everything to get their boys out. Civilians helped to get their soldiers out. That is the wonder of Dunkirk. That's why it's amazing.
Yeah, you're just saying this is...
There was a movie about it. You don't even need to read the book.
Yeah, it's like saying this part of Dunkirk was good, therefore it's good. This part of Dunkirk was bad, therefore it's bad. It's like, yeah, it was war. A lot of bad things happened during war. Sometimes good things like Dunkirk happened. Not all of it is good. That's true. There's different ways, there's different opinions on the same event, and you could see it from different perspectives. If you want to be mathematical about it. You could put all the good things in one pile and all the bad things in one pile. And say, yeah, it was more good than bad. However you evaluate life in that calculus, I don't care. Is he now introducing, hey, you can interpret the past differently? It's like, yeah, depending on what you value more. So maybe you should have started with that, saying, you could see history as good or bad. It's like,
If
okay.
you solely interpret it as a pessimist, and yeah, everything's shit.
Yeah, all of war is bad. Everything that happened in Dunkirk was bad. Freeing the slaves was bad during the Revolution of America. Like all these things.
Normandy D-Day was really, really bad because so many soldiers died.
Yeah, you could just go all over the place.
Doesn't matter that they won.
It's just like, dude, what are you trying to say here?
A really special rarity from veterans of that conflict. But considering the scale of the loss of men, the loss of materials, the loss of France, and the fact that the UK had to resort to enlisting civilians who also died, helping an evacuation from a continent that was then occupied for 4 more years, it may be that some aspects of your grandfather's interpretation of that event could be...
What you don't understand is hope. That is what Dunkirk is about. And...
Well, you see, but the numbers do not align.
Since when do commies care about numbers?
When it's convenient for them.
Yeah, you're saying, France surrendered like that same year. It's like, okay, that's France. We're talking about, we're talking about Dunkirk. It's like, yeah, a lot of bad things happened after and before Dunkirk. You're right. I agree. But you know what? They saved a lot of people. So it's like, getting the knockout in or a technical knockout, whatever knockout you want in a boxing match, that's good. Yeah, leading up to that, you got 10 uppercuts to the chin. You broke a rib. It's like, yeah, you got the shit knocked out of you. It's a boxing match. What do you think? But you still won the match. Like, okay, so you won. Like, yeah, so that's a good thing, right? Well, yeah, but to get there was hell. It's like, of course it was hell.
You need to sacrifice to get the good things.
That's why we cheer for Son Goku.
Like, can you imagine your son or daughter survived Dunkirk? You would say, oh, Dunkirk was a failure. My grandfather survived Dunkirk. Oh, what a failure. What a horrible event that my grandfather lived. It's like, no, you'd be, holy shit, you're alive. That's incredible. You're amazing. Whoever did that was a hero.
Yeah, my neighbor football buddy from when I was 12 was on the little boat that rescued me.
Like, you'd be like, oh my God, let me go buy you a beer, you amazing human being. You like, it's just like, why do you think we have heroes? They do something which is just normal to them or normal for the situation that not everyone would do. And either it's fear or courage or something in between. And they live to tell the tale. And it's like, oh my God, you went through that? That's crazy. Jeez. Anyway. I hope he's happy his grandfather survived Dunkirk. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, no.
Looked at differently. Which sounds like a really wordy, really sort of poncy way of avoiding insulting somebody. But I actually care about not insulting people because I'm nice, so...
No, you're not.
No,
you just said,
no, you are.
You just said Dunkirk was bad.
That's a perfect frame.
You just
That is
said...
the perfect
I am a
frame.
nice person.
I can't believe the French
at me.
deserted the Allies and they got conquered. What a horrible experience Dunkirk was. Like, dude, what are you talking about?
You also said it with a smirk. Isn't that like something narcissists do with the, oh, but I don't
That's
do that
cute
because
face.
I'm nice and say it with a smirk.
It's this cute face.
It shows disingenuousness and malice.
He was smirking halfway through, or not halfway through, but most of the time throughout this video.
You can
Nobody
literally
says,
draw the
I'm
line.
nice.
Yeah.
It usually is.
I'm a nice guy. You never tell people you're an... It's like, I'm Canadian, I'm nice. It's like, no, I'm sorry, I'm Canadian. It's self-defeating humor.
Okay.
And you go, oh, this guy wants to be nice to me by saying he's bad. Okay, I get it.
being nice is like the things like money or IQ. It's these things that you have but don't talk about.
Right.
Because if you do, that's usually an indication that you don't actually have it, or that you have some major insecurities.
I heard someone once say that a guy who genuinely is rich and like swimming in money, what he would do is he'd show up to a fancy restaurant in like regular clothes, not particularly fancy clothes. He'd go, he'd order his meal, he'd have his meal, he'd leave a very large tip just because he can, and just go.
Yeah, and additionally, people like that also. I've heard a few stories of some really wealthy businessmen dudes who are just driving the cheapest possible car ever because it's efficient for them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that the people I know that have done well in life, they don't want rich things. They'll treat everyone else really well. Like they'll take their parents on trips or their nieces and nephews very well because they have the time and money to do so. But they themselves are very frugal. They only use what they need. Time is their major resource, and they're very particular with that. So you could argue they like to get places faster, but for the most part, they're pretty chill. They know what they want, and time is their number one thing. So yeah, no,
You
it's
don't
not,
make money by wasting it.
yeah, I know it's tipping culture in Toronto's a bit weird, so I would never tip unless I wanted to, but it's now 18-20% is the minimum, so I don't go out as much.
Oh my God.
Plus inflation, plus
Just
prices.
pay them wages.
Yeah, well, Canada's weird.
You might not enjoy it, but revisionism has the power to hurt feelings. Challenging people's preconceived notions and core beliefs is really, really dodgy.
Okay, wait. We're not talking about whether I have a girlfriend who likes Hillary Clinton because she's a woman. We're not like trying to list all the horrible things that a politician did in their lives and destroying the hero image that they set up. We're talking about history. We're talking about, ancient Greece or ancient Edo or whatever region and going, yeah, these people out there, they slaughtered a lot of people. It's like, yeah, we know. Every civilization killed a lot of people. We get it.
The smirk that he has on his face when he's picking for the last 2 minutes, there's a clear indication that he is just doing this to piss people off.
Yeah, he enjoys telling people that they're wrong about something.
I guess.
Even though he's the one who's wrong. But he's so sure of himself. He just wants to grandstand. This is the face of the pseudo-intellectual.
Yeah.
People. That's why there are so many conspiracy theories out there. It's so much easier to believe a conspiracy theory
where are you going with this? Because people have cognitive dissonance, they believe in conspiracy theories because I told them differently about history, so they're going to cling to a thing you can't attack or whatever? What are you talking about?
Egypt being made up of black people is much more closer to conspiracy theory nonsense.
He could have mentioned biases. He talked about belief systems, which is fine. Mm-hmm. That's one potential way from not having an argument on logic and facts. But now he's gone into conspiracy theories. That's a bit down the road.
What's the connection? How are conspiracy theories connected to all
this?
Well,
he's just word dropping.
He's listing things that prevent people from agreeing with what he thinks or the evidence he supposes for, I don't know, Dunkirk. And he's like, well, obviously the government knew what was going on, and that's why they did what they could with all the civilians. I'm like, what? Maybe? I don't know.
Obviously, it's easier to believe in the conspiracy theory than the facts that I have just made up on the spot.
On
the one hand, I don't agree with him, but on the other hand, I don't believe that the Egyptian pyramids were built by aliens. He might think that if I don't agree with him, I believe that the Egyptian pyramids were also built by aliens, but that doesn't mean that he's right.
Of course the pyramids weren't built by aliens. The aliens only were the architects. They made the humans build them.
Yeah, it's like, how do I argue with someone to change their mind? I mean, good luck with that. There's so many problems with people. It's the kind of the issue of studying psychology. I have a lot of answers for a lot of people, but you can't impose your will. You can't say, hey, I know what's wrong with you. Let me help you. It's like, no. You have to identify the problem yourself, and then you go to a specialist who then helps you. It's never the other way around.
Yeah, but the real question is, if the pyramids were the landing pads for the alien spaceships, how did the aliens get down to Earth to build the pyramids for the spaceships to land?
All right.
Maybe some of them crash landed and got stranded. Maybe some of the pyramids are actually
Well, that was some
square
that would be
ships.
That would be some shitty aliens.
I-
And also, that's an ancient alien theory about that's actually what happened.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Let's keep going, I guess. We got almost 2 minutes? Not right, 2 minutes. Okay, we got 3 minutes.
Oh god, the super insanity is coming.
Your belief. It is rooted in people being fed history. It is rooted in education systems that do not challenge the status quo.
What?
And that is why our job as historians...
What are you what are you talking about? Why would
The education systems are just feeding us socialist propaganda. What more do you want?
do you seriously think that education should challenge? Wait a second.
What education should do is teach how to think, not what to think.
Yeah, this.
And it's not doing that for a
Can
reason.
you studying like integral calculus? We should challenge how we use cosine and we have differential equations. Like, what are you talking about?
Smart. You're at least 3 years behind, if not 5. The SJWs have already pushed that through in certain states in America.
Well, good luck.
Isn't just to find this new evidence, it's not the old evidence, it is to do it responsibly, and it is to do it with nuance, with humanity, and with as many cups of tea and biscuits as are available. Conference
You're not funny.
organisers, please provide more tea and biscuits.
What are you?
What does he even mean with humanity?
Yeah, that's so generic.
I'd rather want objectivity.
Humility, maybe kindness, patience, time. Like,
Patience,
Lost
yes.
Completely. I can't follow what he's saying anymore. It's like
with Carl Rogers,
he's mostly just been rambling, and now he's trying to be funny again.
use epistemology. I'll use metaphysics. Use all these words. Okay. Aye.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Brad, I'd totally do it about nuance in history.
No.
Anyway, I hope that this has been...
No, you'd be covered by what's oh god, it's by Scribelight. You'd be covered by Scribelight, and he'd just be as confused as we are because he said nothing, and when you didn't project, that is.
a bit of, that this has been a bit of an education. I know it's been a wordy one. I've got that. My brain is working, head feeling. So you guys definitely have
That's
earned
not
a cup of tea and sit
very
down.
much.
There's some reading in the description. Diolch yn fawr iawn am wrando, diolch am wylio, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. Diolch o galon i'r Patreons i gyd. Thank you so much to all of the lovely Patreons. You guys are amazing. If you want to support the channel financially, we have the Coffee link, we have the Patreon link. We've got Patreon AMA that I am going to be recording immediately after I've done this video. That's going to go up on the Patreon for the members to enjoy. That's pretty much it, I think. Yeah, revisionism is a re-examination of the past using new lenses, new questions, and new...
No! It's using new evidence.
The video.
You said it was new evidence, not new lenses. What are you talking? Why do you?
What a deceitful piece of crap! He made all this lengthy video to just at the end throw it all away and reveal his true nature after all.
We can go back to, like, was it minute 4 or 5 where he described what revisionism was? It's like it's just new evidence. It's positive. It's never negative. Then he gave the example of negative, and then the first one was cherry picking.
Scientific method.
Now you're saying you use different lenses? No, that's not what you said before. That's completely different.
Call me alarm.
Yeah.
I think he's generally lost. Like, I forget the whatever ideologies he's following. He doesn't know what he's talking about. If I start a conversation with you and I describe my X and I go ABC, and then at the summarize I say, well, actually it's A, B, C, D, E, and F. You're like, what? Where did that come from? Like, he's rambling. He's just lost.
And this is the peak of his brain performance. If we go by his own statement.
Something is off with this guy. Dude, did something happen to you that you're trying to like feel better and smile at the camera talking about how my life was different and now it's better? Like,
I think he's emotionally 15.
Is he actually studying history, or he like just tried to study it for like a semester and stopped and did something else? I don't know what's going on. We have 2 minutes left somehow. Yeah.
Evidence
it's probably an outro.
Allowed the opening up of things like history, reinterpretations of World War I, World War II. Yeah.
People are paying this guy.
All right.
Yeah.
What?
Why would you give this guy money? What is wrong with you?
I don't think we could have tropes for just a rambling dude. Like, there's nothing to. What would we reference? Like Dunkirk? What would people make a trope
see
of?
what he writes in the description.
Oh, there's nothing there. I checked.
Sure.
It's only
The term revisionism is often used in a negative way on the internet and in today's schismatic, polarized society. But its actual academic use in studying history is actually based on pretty solid principles of questioning the status quo by using new evidence. Questioning the status quo is something that commies like using a lot. Using new evidence, techniques, and questions to allow us to develop a broader understanding of the past. Okay, that's what he said in the beginning of the video. But what actually is revisionist history? Where does the idea come from? How can we apply its principles respectfully, properly, to do good work in studying past as archaeologists or historians? Why did so many people think just a bad thing? Why do some people claim to be revisionist historians when they're actually conspiracy theorists and denialists? And I don't think he answered any of these questions in the video. This one might require a cup of tea and some biscuits. It's a wordy one. Word salad.
Just ramble, more ramble.
Word salad. You might find a tomato in there.
All right. I've got there's so many things. I just don't know what to look at. Cats walking over your shit for 4,000 years. Paw prints on the brick from Harappan period of India, 3,300 to 1,300 BC. Ancient Roman brick from England with cat paw prints. 15th century manuscript with inky cat paw marks across the text. All right. What do we got here? Most games are pretty simple. You jump on enemies, you die, you have to insert another quarter to continue. The Last of Us changed that. HBO showrunner of the series. Wow. Great thing to get the guy who's never played a video game to talk about The Last of Us.
I hated that quote so much.
I can't believe that's real.
It is one of the few things in my life that made me genuinely angry.
Oh dear. History is written by the victors. See peoples arrive, causes the collapse of the Bronze Age, refuses to write anything, and leaves. Bunch of people.
They were refugees. Learn.
Kenyan lawyer sues Israel, Italy for killing Jesus. Okay. Stop unifying China. Oh. All right. That's a lot of words. Spread misinformation. I propagate unverifiable facts. Ancient Romans, look what I made. It's a... Say no more. It's obvious. We don't even have to write it down. Archaeologists today. What did they use it? Oh, yeah, that crazy object they found in underwater or something.
Yeah. The best hypothesis I have come across so far is that it is a decoder item that you can, knowing which of the openings you use, you put in the corresponding disk and the decoder disk, and every word you turn it onto the next socket. That's how you can super encode in ancient times.
Are you talking about the antique Ethereum mechanism?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, the Dodecaeder.
So that's not very kind. I think this is not 1984 levels of revisionism. This is just dumb. Like, he's just dumb. Let's not put nefarious or put the evil intent behind. He's just a dumb, ignorant fellow. Let's go with that. I don't think he's evil.
He has a little bit of sadism in him, but mainly he's a very useful, not so smart person.
Black people invented everything. Is that a real book? Oh my god.
Yes.
Yes.
Investigate the science of self.
I guess we'll just forget all the old white dead guys who wrote everything. All the Indians and their genius.
Didn't you know Mozart
mathematics.
was black?
All the philosophy.
Maybe I should write a book called "Didn't you know that black people invented everything?" as a sort of parody, just so that I could and to list everything in and explain why it was a black achievement, and write it as a satirical book that is very clearly satirical. First, so that I could say that I wrote it before the socialists, and second, to show anyone who actually believed what's inside the book to be a fool. But on the other hand, they probably won't do it.
No, they won't. They will just declare it as absolute truth.
This
don't care about that you set them up.
This is perfect. Egyptians were black. Egyptians enslaved Jews. Whites invented slavery. Reparations. There's a black Egyptian. I'm not sure what button to press.
Yeah, the Israelites of the time weren't really white either. They looked a lot like the other people in the Levant, with the light-ish skin. Like, it's like anywhere from light-ish to brown-ish, which was like the entire region.
Are you saying Jews aren't white? Like every other article on Haaretz.com.
Haaretz is leftist propaganda. I cannot stress this enough.
Yeah, but why is it insisting that Jews aren't white? It's the left saying it. So it must be true.
Jews are only white when it's inconvenient for them. I think. Not sure.
I'm not sure what's going on with the skeleton and the weird colors behind him, but
I don't know why it has eyeballs.
yeah. Average
That's the bigger
historical
question.
revisionism and denial fan. I'm not sure what exactly he meant by negativism and denialism. It kind of it equated to the same thing. But we have Tolkien, who enjoyed what he did in life. If I were your wife, I'd poison your tea, writes a woman. Churchill. If I were your husband, I'd drink it. That's great. He'd drink anything, that guy. Chat, try to tell you. Yeah, no, I did. I heard the news. Donald Trump was apparently shot at in his rally about 20 minutes ago, and he has a bloody ear, but he's fine, apparently.
So typical socialist reaction to, we can't win, so we shoot the other guy, and then they fail at it.
And they suck at it. Yeah, all the things you had to do, you're like point blank or whatever it was.
Yeah. A funny tidbit about the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. At the parade, there were 7 attempts by the Serbian commies to kill him, and all failed. To the point, in a way that Franz Ferdinand didn't even notice going on, because their weapons didn't load right and other stuff like that. It's like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah, there's the Secret Service going crazy. Got blood over his face. That's wow. Like, we already know he's going to win. How many more things have to happen to this guy for people to vote for him? It's just like,
Damn, what a fucking image.
yeah. That's going to go on a T-shirt. Like, that's going to go on the front page tomorrow.
That's a statue.
That's going to go in the museum.
I want that.
That's history, man.
Look at that blood over his face. He's just doing his tour and he gets shot. Like, what?
Flag.
They look like war scars.
Like, the reason why no one's shooting the current president is he's already dead. We don't have to. There's nothing to shoot.
I've said 4 years ago, this is Weekend at Bernie's. And I had to remind people that movie exists and what it is and watch it with them.
Even the second one was pretty fun. It's the same thing.
I loved it. There's some of my favorite childhood movies.
Oh, yeah. I love all the goofy 80s, 70s. Well, mostly the 80s because I was around that time. But even the 70s were good for goofy.
People were creative.
And they did it because it was fun. Who thinks the possibility of ancient aliens at Thanksgiving makes for an interesting history report? Bonjour, ya cheese-eating surrender monkeys. Okay. Don't worry, baby. He's just a nerd. That's it. I'm creating white people. Oh no! It's stupid. Oh god! I can't take that. Those images freak me out. Andrew Jackson at the Battle of New Orleans. I didn't hear no bell. What the hell? Ends the War of 1812. What? Oh god. Switzerland during both world wars. I just hope both teams have fun. Spartan baby is born with slight defect. Spartans. Yeah. Toast. I say the whole world must learn of our peaceful ways. History and memes.
By force.
By force. Every communist revolution ever. Heroism is stupid. I am a good person. I don't know what his message of the video was. That was one of many. History of France, how people remember it. Oh. Other countries, we made this. You can't take it. England.
I mean, honestly, in World War One, the German officers and generals, they had to hold back the German troops because it was so easy to rush forward and kill the French.
Well, in the first year, the Germans mowed down like 60% of the French army because the French generals at the time believed that if the French would put on their red pants and march straight at the enemy, that their enemies would be completely stricken with shock and flee the battlefield, like what happened to them in Africa. But they didn't realize that the people they were fighting against were Germans and not people in Africa without that didn't always have guns.
I like this one.
Sure. I don't know much about their conquest of Africa, but
who would win?
The Germans aren't deterred by red pants.
The largest and most highly trained army and navy on Earth, aided by tens of thousands of top-grade German mercenaries, or some drunken libertarian farmers and fishermen with outdated hunting equipment. It depends. They didn't win all the battles between the Brits and the U.S.
Didn't they get French support and some German mercenaries of their own, I think?
They didn't get any French support.
U.S. and U.S. history books, Russian history books, Canada and Canadian history books. I can't believe it. It was on TV. All right.
At War of 1812.
Creates fascism. Everyone blames Hitler.
Yeah. Everyone blames the Germans. World War One. Everyone blames the Germans.
Hitler's last living relative of pedophilia after kissing girl 13. Always wanted to ruin the family name. What the? Okay. Statues then. Statues now. No, we still do marble. So.
But more rarely.
All right, campers. Today's
a lot of these home statues now, though,
is going to be a hard one. What?
D-Day.
Yeah.
That's a
Is
picture from D-Day, I think.
it Normandy? I don't know. It's one of these beaches.
Yeah, that's D-Day.
History began on July 4th, 1776. Everything before that was a mistake. That's when he went to, was it France? I can't remember where he went. Was it England?
Britain.
Britain, yeah. Oh, God. A community note to be like, stop lying. It isn't 25 times more people. It's a lot higher than that. When you realize doctors in Canada kill 25 times more people than assault rifles do in America.
Makes
okay.
sense.
Murders by any kind of firearm, 13,620. Murders by any kind of rifle, 408.
Here's the rest of the data. In Canada, close to 24,000 are killed by medical malpractice each year. Plus an additional 13,000 died in MAID in 2022. Well, that's something else.
Yeah, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's as many as firearm deaths in the United States.
Yeah,
That's
those,
insane.
those are gang revenge shootings.
But by illegal guns, yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, that just depressed me, so I'm going to go have some tea and try and feel better about life. Yeah, that guy was bad. He was confusing, and it started off promising. He's like, okay, he's going to give me a little lesson on how to, what history is and how we learn about it and how we change our minds. That would have been nice. And instead, he's like, no. This is what should be revisions, and this is what I think. And then just devolved into his own opinions, which is not what you're supposed to do. And on these topics, history should be boring. It should be straightforward and detailed. That's if you ever talk to or ever went to a history lecture, it's very straightforward. So.
Well, boring is a question of interest,
That's true.
Yeah.
I guess.
That's true. If you like,
It's also like how you tell the story.
if you like learning about Roman history, you'll probably be more entertained or more rapt to listen. And yes, some lecturers can be better at telling a story. And I think this gentleman just doesn't know how to do that. Didn't learn how to do it or
Yeah.
didn't care to do it.
Yeah. There's also there are many different ways to structure a story where what you do and still tell it, completely honest. You need to can follow a certain character and tell about his life. And if this person did some pretty interesting things, then that can make the story interesting. But this goes more into the realms of storytelling.
Yeah, but even factual books about Greek and Roman architecture can be interesting to read if you are into the topic.
Yep.
It's all just about whether you like the topic.
Anyway, I'm gonna go turn on the news and see what's going on with America, who got shot and what happened, and who's gonna pay the price. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. That was a horrible video. Thanks for the suggestion, though. Well, have yourself a good day, and we'll talk to you soon. Good night.